Hey everyone, what's up? What's up? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is August the 6th. Today's a Wednesday. We had some earnings yesterday with AMD and some other semiconductors as well that we'll talk about. As for the overall markets, we're actually rejecting off key levels. So yesterday, we came into the day with a neutral bias. We ended up rejecting off of basically the exact area that I was supposed to for potential continuation towards the downside. At least now we're close to where we opened up at for the week. So we'll talk about the ES and NQ here. As for some of the names, we'll take a look at this here in a second. Before we do that, what's up? Good morning. What's up, KO? Good morning. What's up, B Roots, Ryan, Nontali? What's up, Innocent, Print, Monty, Wayne, Robert? What's up, Wayne? What's up, Ashley, Juan, Quitta? What's up, Vate, True? I am. What's up, Daniel, Todd, Edison, 50, Jeff? What's up, Jlam, Cinna, Ollie? Underrated. Yeah. What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Let's kind of hop right into the charts, at least for the live stream. Hopefully it's working. I had like 2 live streams open, which was, I don't know why YouTube was kind of bugging, but let's go on to the major indices and then we'll talk about some of the charts that I'm looking for coming into today. Let's first start off on the higher time frames here because I think it's kind of important. As for the ES, the key levels that we have marked out, let's just kind of remove this. But for the key levels, we have on the ES, as you can see, which is our 6370. So this is the exact area when we had earnings plus tariffs. Sorry, we had earnings plus we had FOMC that drove the market towards the upside. And you can see once we broke back underneath, we end up having this nice push lower. And you can see on Monday, nice rally back up and towards this exact level in the pre-market. We're just unable to get above this key level. And then you can see we end up dropping back towards the downside, back in towards essentially the area that we broke out from here on Monday, which is our 6310. So for the ES coming into today, the key levels that we're just going to have marked out, the major levels in this case is just going to be your 6370. And of course, now it's going to be your previous day lows, 6310. If we now go on to the 15-minute time frame, yeah, these are the exact levels we're going to have marked out. Previous day lows in combination with your previous day highs. As for other levels we can have marked out, we can just mark out some intraday levels that we've created here on Monday, which is just going to be this key pivot level 6335. This is just Monday's key pivot point. You see multiple touches here on yesterday's price action, then here a couple times in the pre-market as well. So coming into today, really for the ES, as I mentioned, the past really coming into this week, we're going to come in with a neutral bias. We're not going to be overly bullish or overly bearish. We're just going to see what happens within the first 10 to 15 minutes and develop the game plan at least intraday. So for the ES coming into today, what I would like to see for some upside, right, maintain above this 635 for a potential move towards the upside. Of course, a clear long is going to be above your previous day highs, or now it's going to be the potential previous day low bounce. As for shorts, you could be looking for shorts underneath your 6335 to target your previous day lows, or if price got all the way underneath your previous day lows and underneath this 63 basically 0.6, we could see a little bit more of a bigger retracement underneath this key level. So for the ES, basically about to open up in between the middle of the range here. As for the SPY, similar thing, we're about to see what happens within the first 10 to 15 minutes because we're going to open up fairly close in between yesterday's range. So for the SPY, the key levels I have marked out yesterday was our 632, which is essentially our previous day highs. And then we have our 628 and then all the way back down in towards your Monday's lows, which is your 626. So for the SPY coming into today, what I personally like to see is the reaction that we have off of your 628.50. If we can get underneath your 628.50, hold underneath, there's a potential that we could gravitate down in towards your Monday's lows. And we also do have this pretty big gap that we created over the weekend. So if we can show some weakness underneath your 628.50, we can see a little bit more of a retracement down in towards that 626. If price can get all the way underneath 626, Then we can see even a bigger retracement down in towards our last week's Friday's close, which is basically the 622. As for some upside on the overall markets, 628.50s is going to be the key level. I'm not as interested unless we kind of consolidated, maybe opening range break, and we had this nice pushback towards the upside. As I mentioned, I am actually very neutral, right? I have no bias either towards the upside or the downside. I'm just going to be waiting for, right, any any intraday pattern or any sort of relative strength and weakness on the overall markets. Since we're just basically right at equilibrium. If we're to look at this once more here on the 1 hour chart, we're basically right in equilibrium. This is your swing high. This is your swing low that we created. Yesterday came right back up into essentially equilibrium. Currently today, we're a little bit underneath equilibrium, but I'd say fairly neutral, right? Essentially a 50% retracement from this swing high to this swing low. If we go into the NQ is a little bit weaker than the ES, as you can see here. There's a lot of other tech names that have been showing a little bit of weakness here on this pullback as well. So for the NQ, it's a little bit weaker than the ES in itself. So for the NQ coming into today, the key levels that we're going to have marked out is essentially your Monday's lows. So this is your 23,100. Yesterday, we ended up rejecting off of your 23,400. Nice kind of push right down in towards your Monday's lows. Now you can see we have multiple touches right off your Monday's lows. As for any more continuation towards the downside, we'd like to see one of two things here for the NQ, right? Pop and fade off of our 23,200 for this continued push down in towards your Monday's lows, or preferably the best short in my opinion is going to happen underneath your Monday's lows, which is your 23,100, also underneath your previous day lows as well, which is going to be a very key level. So if you can get some weak price action coming to market open, which is now going to be underneath your previous day lows along with your Monday's lows, we could be looking for the hold underneath for potential continuation towards the downside. As for the bullish thesis that I have in this case is going to be above our 23,200. If you can get back above, maintain above, you can see this potential push back up and towards our 23,300 coming into today. As for the QQQ, exact same game plan here. As you can see, Monday's lows have marked out, which is our 559 along with our 561.50s. You can see this is a very key level. So if we're looking for shorts, right, pop and fade off our 561.50, or the best case scenario would be getting underneath your previous day lows, getting underneath your Monday's lows, and looking for the lower high off of our 559 for a potential continued push down in towards, now it's going to be your Friday's close at 555. Only way I'm a little bit more interested in long side, I'm number one, more bullish on the ES. So I'd be more interested looking for ES longs than NQ. As for the QQQ, it would have to base above our 561.50, hold above this level for this continued push back up and towards our 563 and potentially 564. So for the overall spine Qs, as I mentioned, we're just going to wait for the first kind of 15 to 30 minutes to develop to see if there's any sort of clear direction in the overall market. As for the Qs, Monday's lows along with your previous day lows, similar thing here with SPY as well. It's going to be your previous day lows along with this 628.50. As for some of the tech names I'm looking at coming into today, first things first, let's talk about Tesla. So if we go into the higher time frames, Tesla is still at the low of the range. So as you can see right here, we have the high of the range marked out. We have this wedge pattern forming. We have the low of the range marked out here as well. What we like to see now is the reaction that we have off of your 312 and also the low of this trend line, which is going to be this essentially 300 key psych. So for Tesla, really coming into this week, we've just been staying heavy underneath this 312. So far, you can see multiple touches from last week, multiple touches this week here as well. What we like to see now, if we want to see some more continuation towards the downside underneath your previous day lows, 306, or this potential kind of pop and fade once again off this 312. I personally like to see now the break underneath your previous day lows if you want to see if you want to see any continuation towards the downside. So for Tesla, we've been just consolidating the past couple of days. What I'd now like to see is the consolidation break underneath and we could be looking for the retest off your previous day lows for a potential push down in towards your 303, right? This trend line, and potentially all the way down in towards your 300 here on the higher time frames. As for longs, only way I'm interested is going to really be above your 312. Price is going to have to get above this level and base. So I'm a little bit more leaning towards the downside. It's fairly neutral. So neutral on Tesla with a very soft bias towards the downside on Tesla. And it's good here to note that when we're trading, at least now, we're going to have a soft bias. So we don't have a hard bias since the higher time frames aren't in alignment. Whenever you have a hard bias, that just basically means every time frame is aligned, right? The weekly, the daily, right? 1 hour, 15-minute. When everything's aligned, that means it's a hard bias, and we can expect whatever way, right? If the time frames are aligned, we can expect it to continue higher, right? In this case, I have a soft bias in the past couple of days just because now the higher time frames aren't as aligned, right? The weekly is still bullish, the daily is still somewhat bullish, but now like the 1 hour's bearish, right? We have like the 15 minutes bearish. So when the time frames aren't as aligned, right, that's when you have a soft bias compared to having a hard bias. So a lot of the names that we have coming into today are going to have a soft bias, so we're open to playing both sides, either to the long side or the short side. As for Nvidia, this one, the key level that we have marked out is our previous day has 179.50s. This is the level I like to see hold yesterday, but just showed kind of weakness right off the bat. Was not able to hold this 179.50, and then we end up just dropping back towards the downside. So now for Nvidia, key levels that we're going to have marked out is just going to be this 176.50. This is essentially your previous day lows. What I'd like to see now is kind of the reaction that we have off this general area. If we can maintain above, we can see this mini mean reversion back towards the upside for Nvidia. If we get back underneath your 76.50s, underneath your previous day lows, potentially we can see your Monday's lows here, which is going to be this 174.50. Let's talk about AMD here, just because this one did have earnings. So with the overall market pulling back, AMD had earnings here as well. And now you can see we're dropping towards the downside. We're only down about 5% here. If we go on to now the 1 hour time frame, as you can see for AMD, we broke key levels of support, which is this 166. So for AMD, breaking underneath this 166, key levels now all the way back down in towards your 162, which is this level that we can mark out here. Let's have this marked out, which is essentially your level of resistance all the way back from July the 17th. So you can see we have multiple touches here on AMD. Key levels for me coming to today is going to be this 167 along with this 162. These are the levels I like to see the reaction that we have. Potential AMD could have a reversal on day number 1. So if we do want to look for a potential day 1 mean reversion here on AMD, I would like to see number 1 reclaim back above our 167, and we could see a potential push back up and towards this 172. Only way I'm looking for downside here on AMD, number 1 would have to be a pop and fade, and essentially an IV flush. It would be off this 167. So price for me would have to pop and fade off this level, show some weakness, and potential continuation down in towards your 162 here and below. As for upside, as I mentioned, there is a possibility for a day 1 reversal back towards the upside, but that's only going to occur above our 167. As for a few other names, Microsoft consolidating here now after earnings last week. Just a lot more range here now after this kind of big push higher, and then right coming back towards the downside. So key levels for Microsoft, you're just going to have marked out now is going to be this 532. 532 is going to be key. Pop and fade. Potentially you can see your previous day lows along with your Monday's lows. If you want to see any sort of upside, reclaim back above your 552, you can see a little bit of a push back up and towards the middle of yesterday's range, which would just be your 535. As for Apple, you can see all these pops are kind of being faded, but we just haven't had continuation lower. You can see pop being faded once again. But for Apple, it so far has not made a new low, which is breaking underneath your day 1 earnings low, which will be your 201.50. So for Apple, so far we're kind of basing today is a very key inflection point. This for me would have to drop if I'm leaning more towards the downside, just because we're building these lower highs. What I'd like to see now is the break underneath your 204, hold underneath, and actually have continuation towards the downside, which in this case, we'll keep an eye out on if it does want to see any sort of, right, a continue push towards the downside, right? Preferably, you wanted to see a drop yesterday with the overall markets. You can see Apple was fairly neutral yesterday, right? Basically closed flat on the day, whereas the overall indices were dropping. So right off the bat, we end up having a nice push lower, but just didn't have any continuation, and then we're fairly neutral. So for Apple, I would be a little bit more cautious towards the downside unless it showed a lot of relative weakness. It could very much well reclaim and then end up having this push back up in towards your previous day highs and potentially your 207. So that's the key levels that we have marked out today. As for Meta, key levels that we have marked out was your previous day highs. We wanted to see that push up in towards your all-time highs. You can see kind of rejected off this general area, but the key level is our 784.70s. And then with the overall market dropping, you can see this one end up pushing back towards the downside. So for Meta coming into today, key levels that we're going to have marked out is just going to be our 764 once again. You can see we have multiple touches off this general area. What I like to see now is maintain above your 764 for this continued push towards the upside, or now it's going to be break back underneath your 764, retest for a potential continuation lower. So 764 is going to be key today here on Meta. As for Amazon, this one kind of similar to Apple, right? Ended up having bad earnings. And with the overall market dropping yesterday, you would have wanted to see Amazon drop towards the downside here as well. This one so far inside bar day. So just building up a little bit more liquidity to both sides. Key levels you're going to have marked out now is really going to be your previous day highs along with your previous day lows. So you can also mark out this 214.50 level here as well for some more upside. Break above your previous day highs, hold for a push up and towards the outer day. And then if you want to see some more downside, break underneath your previous day lows. Potentially you can see your 211.50 here on Amazon. So those are the levels we have marked out. As for Google, this one ended up coming up and towards our key level, taking out our key level. I really want to see our 198.97. We end up gravitating up and towards our 198.50s, and you can see a little bit of rejection off that general area. As for Google now, what I'd like to see is the reaction that we have off your 195.70s. If we can reclaim this level, potential longs are in play back up and towards our 197. If we reject off this level, then it's just going to kind of confirm this potential kind of head and shoulders here on the 15-minute time frame. As for the rest of the names, Netflix actually looks good for continuation towards the downside. Now, if we can maintain underneath key levels. So for Netflix, the next level that I have, which is going to be all the way down in towards essentially this 1100 here. So showing some weakness in the past 20 to 40 sessions compared to the Qs. If you can maintain underneath key levels, potentially Netflix can have a bigger move towards the downside here. So if you're looking at this one, keep an eye out on. Now it's just going to be your 1156 here. This is essentially your last week's low. So now if we can use this level as a retest and hold underneath this key level, potentially we can see a little bit more continuation towards the downside. Okay, so yeah, that is for the tech names that I'm interested in today. As for names that I'm overly bullish or bearish on, all these ones I actually have a neutral bias. So both the SPY and Qs, fairly neutral bias coming into today. Similar with the Qs here as well, fairly neutral bias. As for all the other tech names, they're basically just following along with the Q. So all these ones, we're going to come into the markets with a neutral bias. We're just going to look for the reactions that we have off your previous day highs, along with your previous day lows. And then we're just going to wait for intraday price action, right? The price action around key levels, along with the relative strength or relative weakness compared to the overall indices. All right, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat now and I'll go over them. Let's see, let me grab some water here as well. Yeah, if you guys have any tickers or charts, you guys can drop them in the chat and I'll go over them. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like. If you guys do want to join the watch list that I have for the pre-market prep every single day. That is also in the description below as well. All right, let's see. Government announced possible tariffs on semiconductor sector. Yeah, that's going to be something that's going to affect the semis. We had that recently. For at least the overall semis in itself, we've had kind of a big push higher. We can take a look at SMCI guidance here as well for kind of the upcoming. Let's actually take a look at that. So for SMCI, this one dropped. Overall semiconductors pushing higher. AMD plus SMCI both dropped this earnings season. Let's actually just remove a couple key levels here. But if we're taking a look at them, right, SMCI, let's take a look at the news in itself. Let's go here. So SMCI reported essentially reported a little bit weaker earnings and had less guidance for the rest of the year. As for SMCI, the key levels that we're going to have marked out is really just this 46 here on the higher time frames, but you can see pretty big drop down about 17%, dropping all the way back down in towards key levels of support. So for SMCI, this one is fairly weak. You can see big drop in the overall markets. Key levels that we're going to have marked out coming into today is essentially this 47 key psychological level. If we get underneath your 47 potential, only way you're going to trade SMCI towards the downside, IV flush, you'd like to see kind of pop, initial pop, and then you can look to kind of fade it back towards the downside. Besides that, you want to be a little bit more cautious just because it's down 17%. As for a few other names, Palantir. Let's see. SoFi, I'll take a look at that because of Jack. I've really learned sharpening the market, marking out key levels for pre-market. Thank you so much. Nice job, Hartik. Let's see, TSM. Let me actually go over Palantir. So Palantir had earnings yesterday. Nice pop right off the bat. Had a mini IV flush on the 1 minute time frame. Now you can see it's just holding up. So for Palantir, key level is this 172. I'm not opposed to looking for a potential day 2 play for continuation towards the upside on this name. So for Palantir coming to today, this is really the only bullish name here on the overall markets, at least with the markets dropping here. Palantir is continuing to rise towards the upside. Key levels for me is going to be this 172. If you can maintain above your 172, which is essentially your after hours earnings highs, we can see this nice push up in towards your previous day highs 176. As for downside, only be interested. I'm actually not interested in downside, but if you want to be looking for potential more weakness on Palantir, it's going to be underneath this 172. So we'll keep an eye out on Palantir coming to today just because it did have earnings yesterday, plus it's still holding up comparatively speaking to the overall market. So we'll keep an eye out on Palantir coming into today. As for SoFi, this one's still holding up while the market is dropping. Key levels for SoFi is just your 21 key psych. A lot more consolidation now, which is good after this big push higher. What I like to see, as I mentioned, is going to be the break above 23. And then for downside, it's going to be the break underneath this 21. So with this consolidation, we can just mark out the high and we can also mark out the low here as well. Is there a script you use for these boxes or you manually highlight them yourselves? I manually draw them out myself. AMD earnings yesterday, not great, but AI projection for the future seems huge. Yeah, it's just a pullback. These AI themes and a lot of these semiconductors have been very much overextended. Even something like Palantir, if you look at this one's absolutely crazy, right? Really overextended, haven't had a significant pullback on this name. But for something like AMD, Palantir, NVIDIA, you're just going to play what's in front of you. So as long as it holds key levels and maintains key levels, you're going to continue looking for continuation towards the upside, right? Since you are primarily day trading or short-term trading, instead of long-term is obviously different, but if you're short-term trading, day trading, then you're just going to play what's in front of you. As for Hood, nice kind of rally back towards the highs yesterday. A little bit of a rejection off your 107.50 once again. Really today for Hood, I don't really have too many key levels to mark out. Kind of just your previous day highs, 107.50. As for your previous day lows, we can also have this marked out here as well. As for Hood, I just like to see a little bit more consolidation. Right, you could be looking maybe like an opening range break for a push up in towards this 107. Preferably, the best longs are going to occur above now. It's going to be this 107.50 here on the higher time frames. IWM. So IWM, something to keep an eye out on, at least for the for the small caps. Overall market dropping, whereas IWM holding up and it's actually pushing towards the upside. So the key levels that we have marked out on IWM coming into today is just going to be this previous day highs 221. So for IWM, what we like to see now is really maintain above your 221 for potential continuation back towards the upside. That's going to be key on this name. You can see kind of the discrepancy between that and the QQQ. CRWV, thank you so much for the lessons and info. Greatly appreciate it. When my levels match yours, I know I'm reading the charts correctly. Yeah, that's awesome. So once you're able to understand the levels, which is just your old highs and old lows, and you see they match up, that's the best, right? When they match up, the levels are fairly close, and really the logic and thesis is fairly close to what I'm looking at coming to today as well. That's when you know you have the levels drawn out correctly and you have the correct kind of logic coming into the market open. All right, so for CRWV, this one finally showing a little bit of buyers kind of stepping in. You can see kind of around this 100 key psych level. So for CRWV, now what I like to see a little bit more consolidation so far. Now what I like to see is the break back above your 114. So this is a very key level here. If we can break back above your 114, potentially you can see a little bit more of a bigger push back up in towards your 120 here on the higher time frame. But 114 is going to be key for any sort of pushback higher. Let's see. Let me scroll down here as well. For intraday, let me go over Shopify. Yeah, so Shopify just had earnings. So nice pop here on Shopify. We talked about this one, kind of this cup and handle forming here as well coming into earnings. This one, you can see the buyers clearly stepped in and now we're having this nice pop back towards the upside. So for Shopify, nice kind of flat top break. Key levels we're going to have marked out now is going to be this 145.50s. And then we can mark out this high all the way back here as well, which is going to be this 176.50. So for Shopify, nice pop here in the pre-market. Now what we like to see is to really maintain above this 145. So you like to see an IV flush, potential reclaim for any sort of continued pushback towards the upside. So if you are going to trade this name or any sort of earnings names, you like to see an IV flush. ASML, yeah, this one not really doing too much. It's just slowly gravitating towards the downside here after having earnings not too long ago. But this one, yeah, just continuing to push towards the downside. I would like to see this level support hold, which is your 680, but it does seem like showing a little bit more weakness. Essentially, buyers going to have to step in right off this level coming into today. MSTR. So MSTR dropping a little bit here as well. Key levels that we have marked out on this name is our 392. End up dropping last week with earnings, a couple rejections off of your 392, essentially pushing price towards the downside. Now we're just going to mark out your previous day highs along with your previous day lows. So you can just mark out this general area. And then we can also mark out your previous day lows here as well. So this one, just a little bit more consolidation. If you do want to see any sort of downside underneath your previous day lows, you could be looking to target your 368 here on the higher time frames. Okay. Let me see this as well. CRW, yeah. Yeah, don't spam CRWV. I actually already went over that one, but if you spam a ticker, probably won't go over it. Hood. Let's see. Spotify went over Hood, I think. Spotify. As for Spotify, yeah, Spotify, couple of reactions off a key level. I really want to see a potential push up and towards this 685 here on the higher time frames. This one eventually just kind of gravitated back down in towards this 652. What we like to see now here for Spotify, reclaim potential move back up and towards your Monday's lows. It does seem like it's a little bit weaker on the day. So now with this one, filling the gap towards the downside here or back down in towards your Friday's highs. I'm a little bit more neutral here on Spotify. So we're just going to keep an eye out on this 652. So that's what we have. Are you bullish on Nvidia? So the higher time frames, I'm still bullish on some of the semiconductors, but I'm a lot more neutral now. At least now you can clearly see the momentum is slowing down, right? The higher time frame still intact here, right? You can see the daily chart building up higher lows, at least on the daily time frame. Momentum hasn't slowed down. Trendline still holding up as well, but at least on the lower time frames, at least coming to this week, you can definitely see yesterday's price action. It's just kind of rejected and gave up all its Monday's gains, so a lot more neutral now. So I'm expecting a little bit more consolidation on Nvidia and the rest of these names. And then eventually it's going to most likely continue higher. So I do expect most likely now it's just going to build up liquidity and just kind of consolidate. And then eventually, if we can reclaim back above key levels, we can see this continuation higher. As for coin, yeah, this one's dying off. So coin, after rejecting off of your all-time highs, had bad earnings here as well, pushing towards the downside. Next levels, as I mentioned, underneath your 307 is really kind of this consolidation area that we had, 270s. So for coin, what I like to see today is the reaction that we have off of your previous day lows. As for yesterday, this one actually had a textbook break and retest right off of our last week's lows, off that 312 pop, kind of fade towards the downside. Now the key levels you're going to have marked out is going to be this previous day lows. Similar thing here, what you like to see is the reaction that we have off this general area. If now we can get back underneath, hold underneath, we can see some more continuation towards the downside. MSTR drop, let's see. Is there news on Apple? Yeah, so it seems like Apple kind of popping here as well. So Apple showing some strength. So we'll be interested in Apple now. The key levels that we're going to have marked out is just going to be your previous day highs. So previous day highs we can have marked out 205. So 205 is going to be key here for Apple coming into today. Now what I like to see for Apple, maintain above 205, potential continuation up and towards this 207. So we can actually have Apple marked out coming into today, and we'll be interested in Apple just because it's showing strength here. See market's a little bit of balance now. Apple's above your previous day high, so we'll be interested in this one. SoFi, do you need an editor? Actually, maybe if you can do like motion graphics, that would be kind of cool. You can just email me, Moda. Let's see, OKLO. Yeah, OKLO is continuing to show strength. Overall market showing a little bit of weakness, while this one's just holding up. So OKLO continuing to push towards the upside. Key levels that you're going to have marked out now is just going to be your previous retest, which you can see retested very nicely. And now the key levels that are going to have marked out here is just going to be our 80 key psych. So what we like to see now is 80 hold, right? Hold of 80, and we can see a potential continuation higher. Yeah, Palantir, yeah, this one, until it actually shows weakness, then we're just going to keep looking for continuation. Once it hit 100 key psych, I was like, okay, Palantir already hit 100, and then it hit 150, and now it's at 170. Next one really is just going to be 200. All right, let me scroll down here. Yeah, it's 8:35. I'll go over a couple more tickers here. I'll answer some questions and we'll call it. Let's see. Love hearing the key levels. Seeing answer that one. Is it difficult to trade days when we have no clear bias? Not necessarily. You're just going to have a lower time frame. So when there's more volatility here, we're not just going to use, now we're just going to shorten our time horizon. So normally we will use the 1 hour time frame as our higher time frames, or even sometimes the daily chart. But now when we have no bias, we're going to primarily be using the 15-minute time frame, just because the markets, there's not a very clear direction. So we're primarily going to be using the 15-minute, and we're just going to be keeping an eye out on the reactions that we have off your previous day highs and previous day lows. A good thing here is that since the market is quite volatile, a lot of these moves will complete its daily objectives or even have continuation, just because there's a lot of volatility currently. So we can just use the lower time frames, and we don't have to hold positions for a very long time because they already give us such big moves. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'll go over a few more tickers here, and highs, previous day lows, you're gonna have marked out. And you're just going to keep an eye on the reaction that we have off these key areas. As for a few other names, Snapchat, this one had earnings yesterday as well. That ended up dropping towards the downside. So this one, key levels for Snapchat is really, you're just going to mark out these lows that we have created. So for Snapchat, this one's continuing to show weakness. I do expect this one most likely to make a fresh low. So 7 is not out of the picture on Snapchat. So what we like to see now is really hold underneath. Now it's going to be this 770 potential pop and fade off your 770. We can see a little bit more continuation towards the downside here. So that's all we have for Snapchat. Let me just go over my game plan coming into today once more, and then I am going to call it today. So yeah, coming into today, as I mentioned, no bias for the overall indices. We're kind of in between yesterday's range. We're just going to mark out our highs. We're going to mark out our lows. We're going to see kind of how the first kind of 10, 15 minutes develops coming into today on the SPY and Qs. As for the QQQ, similar thing here. We're just going to wait for the first kind of 15 minutes to develop. Only way I'm leaning a little bit more towards the downside, if it does show weakness right off the bat, pops and fade off this 761 and continues down in towards that Monday's lows along with your previous day lows. But as I mentioned, no buys coming today. We're just going to wait for intraday price action to develop. As for some of the names I'm keeping an eye out on, really the best name in my opinion will be Apple, just because it recently had news in the pre-market showing a little bit of strength here above your previous day high. So Apple is going to be my main watch coming into today for potential hold above your previous day highs. As for Tesla in the middle of the range, we'll just see what happens within the first 10 to 15 minutes. Nvidia showing a little bit more weakness here. So for Nvidia, if we can potentially get underneath your previous day lows and hold underneath, short play is a possibility down in towards that 174. It's not going to be my main thing I'm looking for, but we'll keep an eye out on Nvidia with kind of AMD, SMCI, a bunch of these other names showing weakness. As for AMD, key levels for me is going to be this 167. Potential pop and fade is in play, or even a day one reversal above your 167. So we'll keep an eye out on AMD. And then for the rest of the names, Meta, not interested in. Amazon, not too interested in here as well. As for Google, this one ended up gravitating up nicely up into that 198. I'm only interested in Google, potential kind of reclaim back above this 196. And then really, yeah, that's about it. And then we also have Palantir. I do like this one for potential 2-day continuation. So for Palantir, we had earnings yesterday. We had that pop right off the bat, but just a lot more consolidation. So if we can maintain above your 172, potentially we can see your previous day highs here on Palantir. So today, Apple above your previous day highs, Palantir above this 172 if we can hold. And then we have AMD. I'd like to see the reaction that we have off your 167. So yeah, that is going to be it for me today. As I mentioned, right, don't come into the markets with a bias, right? If you do have a bias, make sure it's a soft bias and not a hard bias, and just be open and playing both sides of the market. Alrighty, yeah, that is going to be it for me today. All right, yeah, I'm gonna get ready for market open. If you guys did enjoy that, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like and sub. If you guys want to join the watch list, that one is in the description below. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.